Hey, I'm Nick. I made over $30,000 a month last year as a solo freelancer. And in this video, I want to peel back the curtain, show you guys how I did so, give you guys a practical roadmap to get there yourselves, and then also make a case for why I think for the vast majority of people that are watching this video, it actually makes more sense to become a solo freelancer than it necessarily does to start an agency. But I'm going to cover all that in a minute. So if you follow all of the steps that I lay out in this video, if you learn all the concepts, it's virtually impossible not to hit $10,000 a month or more. If this is something you guys want to do, then stay tuned and let's get into it. All right, so just before I get into the nitty-gritty, a quick disclaimer. This is just one way that I scaled my own freelance practice to $30,000 a month with nobody else in my business. It's not the only way. So if I were you, a lot of people on the internet make claims like, this is the only way to do it. You have to do it my way. If you don't, you're not going to succeed. Just be a little discerning here. In reality, there are multiple ways to achieve success. This probably makes more sense for me, just given my background and my experience and stuff like that. But I know that there's still a lot of value sharing this with people. So to any discerning viewers, just take whatever makes sense to you and then leave the rest. So I have a qualifier here. I say how to earn 10K a month solo without an agency. And the reason I do so is because what I've found are that everybody on the internet wants to run an agency, but very few people know what actually goes into said agency. So to be clear, the benefits of running an agency, the benefits of starting one as a business is that they have basically no capital cost or a very low capital cost. There's very little barrier to entry, super easy to like whip up an agency. And then you can make a large amount of revenue very quickly. Notice how I said revenue there, I didn't say profit. So people like to think that an agency is just like the logical first step for them. And I'm kind of guilty of perpetuating this notion for search engine purposes. Like every second video of mine says agency, AI agency, automation agency. But in reality, in this video, I'm going to show you why you don't actually need to do any of that. You can actually just do solo leveraged freelancing and you can make a similar amount of monthly profit to a big agency with 10 or 15 people just as a solo operator. And you can do so with less time, less energy, and much, much less risk because you don't have people depending on you. You only have technology. And the current state of technology is such that you could, build systems that produce leverage, like I'm going to talk about, and show you guys some of. And in reality, you can achieve more than $10,000 a month with just a few hours of dedicated work per day. So if that all sounds fantastical to you, it's not. Myself and many other people make much more money than this online with just a few hours of dedicated work per day. The whole myth that you have to work 16 hours a day and bleed for your business is definitely like a deprecated one of the past. What I'm going to do in order to help you guys get to that point yourselves is impart a few simple concepts. In this video particularly, we're going to be talking about three. The first is called displacement. The second is called leverage. And the third is called feedback loops. And let me just see if I can draw on this. Fuck yeah, I can. Okay. So let's actually jump into what I mean by this. I have a little picture of money here. And you're probably like, why is there a picture of money? Well, the reason why is I just don't want us to forget what we're doing all of this for in the first place. The reality is, if you start an agency or if you want to start an agency, you're probably not trying to ship people to Mars or something. You're just trying to build a better lifestyle for yourself. And so the only real thing that matters to that end is your ability to earn money and your ability to earn money quickly. And money in business terms sort of has two components. It has the revenue component, which is the top line. And then it has the profit component, which is how much is sort of left over after all expenses. So in reality, leveraged freelancing allows you to earn substantially more profit per dollar of revenue because your margins tend to be a lot higher and you tend to be able to keep a lot more of the money that you make. So an agency, hypothetically, might make $100,000 a month or something, but their profits at the end of the month might only be $20,000 or $15,000 or something. Whereas you as a leverage freelancer, you might make $15,000 a month and then your profits would be like $14,000 a month from that. So you can basically achieve the same sort of outcome, which we all want, which is money. You can just do so at substantially lower revenue multiples, and you can, also structure your life in such a way that you're not constantly working. You have better work-life balance, and so on and so forth. Let me be very clear about why you should join or you should start some sort of leveraged freelance operation. The main benefits here are you don't really have to sacrifice work-life balance. You get similar levels of financial freedom as an agency with the typical lack of work-life balance that comes with it. This lack of work-life balance, this tends to happen because you start hiring a lot of people, you start bringing other people onto your team, and so you stop just being responsible for yourself and for your clients, you start being responsible for a bunch of internal team members as well. You need to take care of work that you weren't necessarily expecting to when somebody has like a PTO or maybe like an unexpected leave. You start having to just like deal with a lot of bullshit that quite frankly does not contribute to revenue. So on that note, you also have no wasted time if you do this yourself. Any time spent communicating a project communicating about a project is time not spent doing the project. And that's something that not a lot of people understand until they get into a corporate environment. You would be surprised at how much of the total effort in a project is just spent talking about a project, not actually doing the project. I think the bigger a company gets, generally speaking, it's like a rule where, like as a solo freelancer, you spend 100% of your time like doing the project, right? You spend very little time just talking about the project, unless you're like me and you just talk to yourself in front of a camera sometimes. If you invite somebody into your business, well, now because they don't know everything that you know, there's a little bit of this communication cost that comes in. Maybe you spend 80% of your time working on the project, but 20% of the time talking about it. When you invite 3 people into your business, now maybe you do 60%, 5 people, it's like 50%. That number just keeps on going down. When you do leverage freelancing, when you do it solo, 100% of the time you spend, that is the shittiest line I've ever seen. 100% of the time, that is too, I'm going to need to figure this out. 100% of the time you spend just goes towards the work, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So that's really important. You don't have to manage staff. I freaking hate managing staff. I think I'm good at it, but it's a lot of work, man. There's a lot that goes into managing staff and you can really screw it up. There's training, there's onboarding, there's dealing with sick days, poor performance. There's a lot of legal requirements, especially if you want to go about hiring employees. Getting rid of all of the staff, like Terminator T2 style, like reduces risk. You don't have any of that stuff weighing on your shoulders anymore. You can just do what you want. And that takes me to the next point, which is that you're much faster. Instead of having an idea like most people do in companies, and they have an idea at some like top level, and then as a manager, their task is they have to like get everybody on board with their idea or their vision, and then convince them of it. And then and only then do you start like delegating and collaborating and making the idea happen. As a leverage freelancer, you don't have to do any of that. You just have the idea and then you just do it. And it's just so much faster. The gap between you and then the implementation of the idea is basically zero. A good example of this is I wanted to get myself on a bunch of podcasts, and I was curious to see whether I could just reach out to people and say, hey, how's it going? I run a YouTube channel that has 35,000 subs, and I just want to see if you were interested in hosting me in your podcast. So it took me something like an hour to whip up a campaign that started getting, maybe a dozen or more positive responses from various podcasters and hosts and so on and so forth. If I were in a bigger agency, you can imagine how that process might have been very different. Like somebody would have had an idea, they would have distributed that idea to their team would have had to get on board with the idea, understand the purpose of the idea, understand the vision. They would have had to, create a strategy around that. You would have had to give it to a copywriter who would have had to check with me to make sure the copy looks good. I don't have to do any of that shit. I just get to do it all myself. Obviously, that comes with the qualifier that like you have to be good. You have to be able to write all this stuff yourself and do all this stuff yourself. But I find in practice the gap between you and the level of skill you think you need to do something well, that gap's a lot smaller than you think. And if you just do leverage freelancing, you tend to learn these things pretty quick. Okay, another more high-level thing is personnel constraints make your business lean. So have you ever heard of the phrase, we should throw more people at this problem? Well, most companies operate like this. In a leverage freelancer's case, we have very limited personnel resources, just you. And so because of that, you are basically forced to structure your business super lean from the get-go. You are forced not to take on more than you can do. You're forced to be smart about the way you approach systems and businesses and clients. And I'm going to make the case later in this video why that constraint is actually a very, very good thing. It's great to have an artificial constraint put in front of you, especially at the beginning, because it forces you to build your business lean from the get-go, build your business efficient from the get-go. If in the future you decide to hire and build an agency anyway, well, no freaking problem. You've already built an agency 3 or 4 or 5 times efficient because it's just you. When you bring people on, now you have systems and stuff like that that multiply your leverage. And then the last one is obviously higher margins, and it's all yours. The majority of SMB agencies, small to mid-sized businesses, they make about 30 to 40% margins. That's sort of like a generous estimate. A lot of them make 15 to 20%. On $30,000 MRR, that means they might take home $10,000. As a leverage freelancer, your profits are usually closer to about 90%, which means you can make the same profit at literally a third of the size without all the annoyances listed above. The TLDR is more freedom, more money, more joy. Okay, anyway, so I think I've gotten my case out of the way. I'm no longer going to talk about why you should do agencies as opposed to, well, I am going to talk a little bit about that. But from now on, we're going to get into some core concepts, and I'm also going to cover like the implementation of how to actually take an idea to do this leverage freelancing thing and then actually how to go out and make it a reality. I'll show you guys how I did it. I'll show you guys how a bunch of other people do it. And I'm looking forward to diving into this because I think this is the first time somebody's really talked about these concepts in the context of business. So I have 3 concepts that I want to cover with you guys. The first is an idea. called distance versus displacement. This is an adage, like a hand-me-down from physics class. If you guys remember back in, I don't know, secondary school or maybe college, people talk a lot about distance versus displacement. And the reason why is because the two are different. Looking at this graph here, we have a point A, and then we have another point B. The distance is the total amount of, well, I guess I can't recursively define this distance as the total amount of distance traveled. It's the total amount traveled before you get to the point you want to get to. And in this graph, as you see, we have these dotted lines that go up, and we're traversing quite a lot of distance to get to this point B. Displacement, on the other hand, is just the straightest line path from A to B. So you can walk a really long distance, but if your distance isn't in exactly the right direction, that shit doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're jumping all over the place, right? It doesn't matter how far you walk. You could walk 7 million miles north, okay, hypothetically, and that wouldn't matter at all. The only thing that matters is your ability to make it. Ooh, this is actually kind of fancy. Make it to that point B. So agencies will typically cross a lot of distance. They'll spend a lot of energy moving, but all of that movement at the end of the day is wasted. It doesn't take them any closer to their target. When you're a leveraged freelancer, you have a very straight line path from A to B. You basically accomplish the same displacement. You just get to do so in about half the distance. So a lot of the time, because it's just you in the organization, it's not like 10 other people pulling at you. You just get to go the way that you want to go. So this isn't just a concept for agencies and freelancing. It's a concept that we're gonna talk about basically in this video and every video forward, that allows you to achieve more in half the time, more in half the work, more in half the distance. So I want you guys just to keep that in mind. It's a mental model that I use all the time. It's what I use to get to $30,000 a month. It's just how I see a lot of problems. The second concept I want to chat about is one called leverage. Now, again, this is a hand-me-down from physics. You'll see me do a lot of this, but all levers are, and that's where the term leverage comes from, levers. They're just machines, simple machines that multiply force. They make it easier to do things like lift a load, for example. So to use leverage means you just do the same thing with less, or you do more with the same. If you see over here, I have this little diagram of basically like a fulcrum and then a little lever. And it was one of the simplest levers possible. Anybody that's gone to some high school physics class will probably understand this intuitively, but this load is really close to this fulcrum. You see how it's like, it says 2 meters here? And then over here on the right-hand side, the length of this thing is 6 meters. Well, there's a physical law where when you push one end of a lever and that lever rests upon a fulcrum like this, the distance between the tip of that fulcrum and then where you put down the effort basically multiplies the amount of force that you're able to generate. You see how this load is 2 meters away, whereas we're putting the effort 6 meters away? We're basically generating 3 times the effort with the force that we're putting. So in order to lift this load, which might be 1,000 pounds, we only need to put 333 pounds of effort down here. You don't actually have to fully understand the physics behind it. That part isn't relevant. All I want to do is just give you guys a simple example because I think we all understand intuitively how this works. If you go further and then you push, it'll be a lot easier than if you go really, really closely. And all we're going to be doing is we're going to be finding very high leverage actions. We're going to be finding the spot on this lever that we just push a little bit that produces a massive result. Archimedes said, give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum in which to place it and I shall move the world. I think this is sort of a dramatization of the reality, but yeah, logically speaking, if your lever is long enough and the stick does not break, you could lift a black hole for all I care. So that's core concept number 2. I just want you guys to keep that in mind as we talk about what I'm going to talk about. Core concept number 3 is the difference between tight and loose feedback loops. So if you put your hand on a hot stove, what are you going to do? Obviously, you're going to pull it away really quickly, right? The reason why is because you have a tight feedback loop. You are very closely in tune with your body and the consequences of the actions of that body. What you'll find in practice is that not all feedback loops are this tight. Imagine if instead you put your hand on the stove and then it took your brain 15 seconds to register that your hand was burning. Your hand would probably look a lot different at the end of that 15 seconds, right? So when you have tight feedback loops, you're able to iterate very quickly. And that's what we get to do as leverage freelancers, but it's also something that I just want us to keep in mind moving forward. If you're in a big agency and there's tons of people and there's reporting structures and you don't actually see the things that you do play out in the real world, when you have that distance, you tend to burn your hand a lot more. And, it's not even that you burn your hand more often, it's that when you do burn your hand, it tends to be a lot worse. So that's those are the three concepts that I wanted to cover. Just to remind you guys, we had distance versus displacement at the beginning, which is where you can travel a much longer distance to get to the same point. So it's always good to try and travel as little distance as possible. We had leverage, which is where you can multiply your force by pushing as far up that lever as possible. And then we had tight versus loose feedback loops, where if you want to make good decisions and if you want to be smart about how quickly you respond to decisions, typically you want to minimize the distance between you and the consequences of your decisions. You want to keep those feedback loops really tight. All right, sweet. Enough with the philosophy. How do you actually earn $10,000 a month solo? Now that we know these three concepts, now that we can keep these in mind while we operate. Well, it's pretty straightforward. And, I talk a lot about automation agencies in my material and in my programs and on my YouTube channel. But what I've come to realize in consulting with people recently is that you can do the exact same approach I show people how to do for automation agencies, but you can do them in whatever industry you want, essentially. I've helped copywriters hit $10,000 a month. I've helped, programmers, software freelancers. I've helped some accountants hit $10,000 a month. I've helped video editors hit $10,000 a month. The core process is almost always the exact same. The only thing that differs is step number one, which is a high income skill. So 4 key steps to this. Number 1 is we're going to get a high income skill, which I'll talk about. Step 2 is we're going to productize that high income skill. Step 3 is we're going to do daily lead generation. I'll talk about how to do that. And then step 4 is we're going to do optimization and client retention. I'll talk about that as well. This works for anyone, regardless of where you're starting out. It works for any skill level. It works for any area of expertise. You can treat this like a curriculum if you need to keep track. You can, get a whiteboard on your beside your bed every morning when you wake up and just do the daily lead generation task that I'm going to talk about. However you want to structure this is fine, but these 4 steps, along with these 3 concepts, this is all that you really need to know to hit $10,000 a month. Capitalism at the end of the day is just a game. It's literally just a game that you were signed up to without your choice or consent. And so because you are thrust in this game, you might as well learn the rules of the game. You might as well learn some strategies that you can just repeat effectively in order to get what you want to get. And that's the case that I've made here. Okay, so let's talk about that high income skill first and foremost. What is a high income skill? Well, I like to simplify this. I have a lot of people ask me. The simplest way to explain this is a high income skill is an ability that either generates money or it saves money for a client. By doing this, you make yourself highly indispensable to that client. You make yourself extraordinarily marketable to that client, and it gives you a lot of staying power and sticking power. Now, the rub is, which most people I think misunderstand, when they hear the high income skill part, they're like, well, yeah, Nick, no shit. I could be a master at something, and of course I'll make $10,000 a month. The reality is you don't actually need to be that great at anything in order to make $10,000 a month with that. You'd be surprised at the graveyard of extraordinarily skilled specialists out there that are amazing at what they do. And they don't make more than $3,000 or $4,000 a month because they have the high income skill. They don't have anything else that I'm about to show you. And this is a big problem that I see when people sign up to my programs, to be honest. They are very good at what they do. Hell, I'm sure a couple of them are even better automators than I am, or definitely better computer programmers, that's for sure. They just lack everything else. And so they could be the best in the world at that thing. If they don't have the other bits, it just kind of falls apart. You don't actually need to be that good in order to combine this with the other bits and make a ton of money. So the distance, I would say, nowadays between you and then somebody that makes a ton of money with a high income skill, it's just a few weeks. It's a few weeks of self-education, realistically. It's a few hours a day of practice, a few hours a day of watching YouTube videos. We have the best library out there ever. And I'm going to run you through a couple right now. We have automation, obviously. I'm a little biased here because this is, the content of my programs and a lot of what I talk about. But there are other high income skills as well. Copywriting. People talk about how AI has completely decimated copywriting and stuff. It hasn't. Not good copywriting anyway. Now it's going to take quite a few years left in order to replicate really, really powerful copywriters, specifically like direct sales letters, like long form copy, newsletters. Anything where there's just a lot of nuance built up over many layers. The third is performance marketing, so paid ads. This is still a very high income skill, although people like to think that Facebook and Google and stuff like that are taking over all this. Video production and editing, that is getting substantially more in demand, I would say, as we're changing the distribution of content. And then I have a big list of other skills here. as well. So, SEO, funnel building, growth hacking, email marketing, affiliate marketing, business development, web development, mobile apps are still really big. I say AI and machine learning here really generally. I don't actually mean like you need to be able to create an AI model or anything. Cybersecurity, I'm seeing blow up a lot. Public relations, I worked at a PR agency, $15,000 retainers. You can make a ton of money with any of these things. All I've done here is I've just given you a little list here. And it's not important what you pick, okay? It really is not important what you pick. The only thing that is important is that you just pick something and you spend 10 to 15 hours learning the fundamentals with free low-cost resources. Everything you need is 100% free on YouTube. The second that you're at about 10 to 15 hours and you feel at least reasonably confident about like the subject matter of this, you can just move on. You don't have to become a pro. Don't spend your entire life learning before you actually go out there and start marketing yourself. That's a very classic beginner's mistake. Okay, so once you've achieved this high income skill, once you have something and it's got literally 10 to 15 hours, which some of you guys could realistically do before the end of the day today. Once you have achieved this level, the next step is you need to take this and you need to productize it. What is productizing your offering? Well, if you don't productize, you will never make more than a few $1,000s a month doing freelancing. This is because a lot of freelancers fall into this pit where they have some sort of custom project that they give, or they just offer a general service. They say like, I offer copywriting services. And then every time they get a new client, every client has a different copywriting need. Some clients need some, video sales letter. Other ones need some, email marketing newsletter. Other people need like Google Ads and whatnot. They take on every project. And because every project is so different from the previous projects, they're never ever able to build momentum. They're never able to take advantage of things like templates. And this is really where the leverage comes in, right? Why would you, in the leverage example, why would you push the lever super close to the fulcrum when you could just go way far out and push it really far instead, multiply your force? If you could build templates that do 80% of your work for you, which is what productization essentially refers to, you're going to be a lot better off. So, productization just means you create clear, repeatable, and templated services that do, I like to say 80% or more of the job. That's just my rule of thumb. I don't try and get like 100% of the way because I find that's infeasible. And just like a long lever and a fulcrum, this is going to multiply your output, multiply your ability to do cool things. Like if you think about it, if before, that is not a square, that's a triangle. If before, you're pushing down here, this is going to help you push all the way over here. This is going to multiply your ability to produce some output at the end. Okay, so what are some examples of productized services? A quick one is a $2,025 website in 72 hours package. Maybe you just whip up a website with a set number of pages or something like that. That's like your beginner offer. You guarantee some sort of result here in 72 hours. This solves a short-term need for people that need like a high-quality website quickly. One that I talk a lot about in my program is cold email systems. So let's say a $1,538 cold email system setup. You use templated copy. You give people 9 mailboxes, and then you say you're going to get 10 guaranteed leads in 60 days or you don't pay. Could be a $596 detailed SEO audit with actionable recommendations. Maybe you're some big hotshot SEO guy and people just pay you to give them a giant list of things they need to fix. Saves them a ton of time and energy. Why is this important? The reason why is because clients get exactly what you tell them that they're going to get. You never have any sort of misunderstanding regarding the deliverables that you provided and then the deliverables that they paid for. And then more importantly, it means that you get to template things. You do get to template assets. You get to template, proposals. You get to template sales materials. You get to template basically everything, which at the end of the day allows you to just like not have to spend 2 to 3 hours every time you get a customer or a client. You just spend a few minutes. You're also able to deliver much faster because of said templates and the repeatability of the process. This also means you'll deliver better. When you start doing the exact same thing every single time, and if you just do this for a month, the deliverable at the end of the month is going to be completely unrecognizable compared to the deliverable at the beginning of the month. The issue is because we provide different services and we work on slightly different skills, we never allow ourselves to get really good at doing that one thing. And because we never standardize it, we're never able to point out the deficiencies in every service implementation. Well, if you take this approach and if you productize as quickly as you possibly can, you tend to deliver a lot better, which helps you, make money without having necessarily to spend the concomitant amount of time. And then speaking about time, this allows you to move away from hourly billing. It allows you to start focusing on the outcomes that the customer gets instead. This is necessary to minimize your daily time spend and take advantage of leverage. This is really where the term leveraged freelancing comes in. So now you're thinking, Nick, this sounds great and all, but how the hell do I actually do this in practice, right? These are 3 or 4 steps. I have no idea what this looks like. What I want to do here is I just want to show you a good example of a friend and a former client of mine, Joe Davies at Fat Show. These guys productize the hell out of search engine optimization and PR. Now, I'm not saying you have to, I'm not saying you have to set up a website that does all of this just like they did with this cute little devil thing and then this wonderful little animation. I'm not saying that. I'm just giving you guys a quick example of how you can talk about the deliverables, how you can take services that people previously thought were like really vague and hard to conceptualize and hard to make these discrete line item type things and turn them into something that is productized. So check this out. Digital PR campaigns designed to be resold. One of the big things in PR, and I know this myself because I owned a PR agency for a period of time, a reasonably big one as well. One of the big issues with PR is like when you start working with a company, they typically do things extraordinarily custom. They want to like learn about you, your vision, your brand. You know, that this whole consultation period might take weeks. And then the whole idea behind PR, public relations, is at the end of the result, at the end of the working relationship, the idea is that you just get a couple of articles in big journals like CNN or Wall Street Journal or something of that nature. What Fat Joe has done here is instead of all that, instead of that lengthy consultation period, instead of all this time, energy, and resource mobilizing all this bullshit, you instead just offer people a guaranteed number of links. You offer people a guaranteed DR, that just stands for domain reputation, guaranteed amount of traffic, guaranteed number of stories created, and then you give them like a very flat and simple cost up front. All they need to do in this case is they need to like click on a button. You also show them an example of what they get if they do buy or work with you. So I love the way that these guys do this stuff. And, you know, if you're a follower of my channel, you know that I mention them pretty often because I think their productization is one of the reasons why they're able to make, 8 figures a year now with PR where a lot of people can't. Now, after you've looked up some companies that provide your service, I mean, Fat Joe is a great one if you're doing any sort of SEO, then open up this Google Sheet. And I have a couple of very simple steps here. And I just wanted to like put this somewhere that wasn't on my Whimsical in case I tried to change it or turn it into an asset later. All you need to do is just follow these 3 steps. First, once you have this list of services broken down into deliverables, like the number of links and so on and so forth, what you do is you deconstruct each service down into the work that you have to do in order to create it. For instance, if you think about it, a $2,025 website in 72 hours, that package that I talked about earlier, you might need a couple of things for that. You might need a landing page. You might need an about page. Maybe you need a contact us page. Maybe you need some images. Maybe you want there to be an image of the founder waving or something. Basically, you have to list all this stuff out line item style, just so you know everything that goes into the project. And then after you're done, all you need to do is just produce a step-by-step guide on how you would do it, assuming that you have zero knowledge. Once you have the step-by-step guide, the reason why you do this is because we're starting to standardize the way that you provide or produce a service. And this might only take you, 20 or 30 minutes per thing. Once you're done, go through this process step by step, the process that you just created, so that you can see if this is sufficient of an SOP in order to produce the desired result. And then just use it to create a general template with sections that apply to maybe 80% of projects. So how do we actually make this relevant? Well, if you think about it in terms of Fat Joe, you see how it says 2 to 6 stories created. The whole idea here is you write up a story and then you send it to a journalist and you're like, hey, how's it going? I know you specialize in this. Here's a story that we wrote for this client, which is doing all this cool shit. You can literally just copy and paste this and post this on your magazine or your newspaper if you want. So you're saving them a lot of time. What you would do in this specific case is you would just template out like 50 stories. You would like one time write 50 stories. They'd all be slightly different. They'd all be general enough that you could just swap in various brands and so on and so forth. And maybe when you get a new client, you would ask them a couple of simple questions, then take that brief, feed it into ChatGPT. And now you just have like a slight little variance to that story that you just send over to a PR journalist or something. This eliminates you needing to copyright. It eliminates you having to spend a bunch of time and energy doing that shit. And it's basically one of the straightest line paths to just do the work involved in this. Once, as opposed to every single time you get a client. Obviously, you can then spend a lot more time on every story. You're not like stressed out because you have a client deadline that's coming up. And it just gets a lot easier. What's another way that you would productize this? You would get a big list of journalists. You'd spend one period of time assembling a big list of all the magazines for all these different niches that maybe you want to work with. And now when you get a new client, you don't actually have to like do that when you get the client. You just know, okay, well, I have this big network of journos. All I need to do is just take that story, customize it to every client using the brief, and then just send it out. So you could make $5,764, and you could do so in realistically like 20 minutes of work. That's the whole idea behind productization. I know I talk about SEO here, and there's a lot more than SEO that you could do, but you can take the same approach and you can apply it to copywriting. You can take the same approach and you can apply it to automation. I talk a lot about templates. I always provide blueprints at the bottom of my videos. You can take the same approach, talk about cybersecurity. You could template out audits. You can literally take this approach to more or less any service that you provide. Cool. So now that we understand what productizing our offering looks like, the third and probably the most important part of all this is the daily lead gen. So, in an agency, you typically have salespeople, you have people that fulfill the work, right? If you're doing leverage or solo freelancing yourself, logically, you have to do all that yourself. So you have to sell the product, and then you also have to fulfill the product. Unfortunately, what always happens when I see freelancers start this stuff is they end up getting caught around like the 3 to 5K a month mark. And the reason why is because they will generate a bunch of leads first, and then they'll get so overwhelmed with all the leads, and now they have to fulfill and deliver on all those leads. So they stop doing the lead generation. Once they're done the projects, because they haven't done any lead generation, now the pendulum swung the other way, and now they have no leads again. So they have to go full into lead gen. Well, there's a much better way of doing this, and the best way to do so is just to always have some sort of trickle of lead generation going on. My recommendation, and one that's worked really well for me and approximately over 1,200 people now, 1,200 agencies and freelancers that have tried this, is doing daily lead generation instead and just making it a non-negotiable. If you can get in the habit of doing some sort of daily lead generation, you'll find that like 95% of your competitors, you'll just leave them in the dust because so few people have the wherewithal to even do like half an hour to an hour of consistent daily sales activity per day. And if you are smart about how you do it, if you take this idea of distance versus displacement in mind, and if you find the shortest line path to achieve the same result, you can typically achieve basically what an entire sales team will do, just yourself, as long as you're smart about it. So how do you actually get smart about it? Well, I'm going to talk about it here, but there are 3 strategies I like to use for lead gen. The first is Upwork, which I think a lot of people, they shit on constantly, and I'm going to tell you why you shouldn't shit on it, especially for freelancing. It's a little bit harder for agencies, but I also talk about it there as well. The second is cold email. And then the third is communities. And yeah, lead gen is just a numbers game at the end of the day. It's just all about momentum. As long as you can keep this up, if you do this, I don't know, every morning when you wake up for 30 to 45 minutes using the platforms I'm going to tell you, you are almost guaranteed to win. And I'll talk about why in a sec. Okay, so the first thing is, or the first platform or tool is Upwork. Now, I've made about $500,000 on Upwork. If you're not already making $10,000 a month and you don't have a profile on Upwork, you are losing a ton of money. If you are not signed up to Upwork because you have some pre-existing limiting beliefs about it, like the clients are really shitty on this platform, or it doesn't matter how much time I spend on Upwork, I don't want to do my stuff through a platform or whatnot. I just want this to be my permission to you to at least give it a try, right? Like you probably have all these opinions about all sorts of things that you've never actually done because people have told you, or you've read a couple of articles, and all that subconscious shit is just swirling around in your head. I'd recommend not fully disqualifying anything until you actually try and dip your toes into that water, until you actually get your feet wet, because it worked extraordinarily well for me. It's working very, very well for hundreds, over 1,000 people in my groups now. So most people do Upwork wrong. Here's how you do it right. The first thing you do is you set up your profile, and then you'd optimize it. And I have some optimization checklists that I'll run you guys through in a second. But essentially, this is my profile over here. You guys see how it says Nick S, Vancouver, Canada, 99% job success, top rated plus. The job success, the top rated plus, and the earnings amounts and the jobs, you're not going to have this stuff if you just make a profile. It takes you some time to accrue this sort of experience. And to be frank, the amount of experience I have is one of the reasons why getting future jobs has been so easy for me. But all you need to do is just follow this little checklist. The first thing is just check your profile pic and just make sure that like it stands out. I like to center myself so that it's like somewhere around chest level. Just a quick and easy hack that, eliminates 95% of the issues where people just don't trust you because they don't see your face or something like that. I like to use a really bright colored background. Just another little conversion hack. If I use a bright colored background, I find I got 2 or 3% higher proposal to reply rate. That's important. Online for messages. If you want Upwork to work for you, you have to play the game. And just like you do CRO for a website, you also do CRO on your Upwork profile. When people see that you're online for messages, they're just more likely to get back to you. These are all very low-hanging fruit, but if you want to win on Upwork, try this. You'll be surprised at how easily it wins. The next is your little description and your title and stuff like that. When you do this, put yourself in the shoes of the clients that you're attempting to win. If you think about it, make sure you know the problem that you are solving, or make sure you know the issue that you are attempting to solve. On Upwork, people already know what they want. So you don't have to tell them what it is that you do, because if you're applying to one of their jobs, it's evident that you do the thing that you said that you did, right? They also don't care about all your fancy copywriting and stuff, because everybody tries to do this fancy copywriting and stuff. That's not really a thing to compete on. The one thing that actually matters is your past experience. The big issue with people on Upwork is they tend not to have any past experience. And so if you can provide the implication that you have some past experience, if you can have them infer that, oh yeah, this guy's worked with some big people before, you're basically always the person at the top of the list. You're basically always going to win. So I always talk about a simple format where you introduce yourself, you talk about what it is that you do, and then you just do 2 or 3 little bullet points with the big dick, social proof case studies. In my case, my work has over 50 million reads. I write a newsletter read by the founder of HubSpot, and I've been featured in major publications like Popular Mechanics and Apple News. If you're hiring me for article writing and you see these, you're going to be like, wow, that guy knows his shit. If you look at all of the other profiles and platforms, it's just going to be filled with people trying to show off how amazing they are at copywriting. Very few people actually give a shit. The biggest trust signal you can do on Upwork is just use my social proof format. Okay, so that's juice point number 1. Juice point number 2 is to apply with a customized video. So Upwork applications just cost money to send. It's like 10, 12 connects or something like that. It comes out to about $1.50. Since every application costs a certain amount, logically, you should attempt to recoup as much of that value as you can. The way that you do so is you customize the hell out of every application, right? We talk about leverage. We also talk about things that don't scale. This is an example of a thing that doesn't scale, but it's very effective. So because you've already paid this money, you're going to try and recoup as much value by maximizing your conversion rate. And the way you do so is not just by copying and pasting some shitty CV like 99% of people. You do this by recording a customized Loom video or equivalent. If you don't want to use Loom, you can use something else, where basically you introduce yourself. Ooh, that's much better. And then you produce something of value for the customer without the customer asking. What do I mean by this? Well, if I were to go on Upwork right now, let me see if I could dig up a tab and drag that puppy over. And then if I were to, let me see here. I don't know. I'm just going to type in automation because I think that's a little bit easier. And then if I were to, Python developer needed to split large CSV files. Let's say I was a Python developer. I was trying to do some software freelancing or something. I would record a video that looks something like this. Hey, how's it going? My name's Nick. I just came across your job post looking for a Python developer splitting large CSV files. For context, I run a YouTube channel with 35,000 subscribers and I make, thank you, Rise, about $130,000 a month. Currently, I'm talking about stuff like this, development and automation and so on and so forth. What I want to do in this video is actually just want to create the thing that you're asking for, or at least show you how to create it, get you about half the way there so that if you do choose to work with me, it's going to be easier for me to do. It's going to be easier for you to do. Okay, great. So here's what I would do. I would open up my VS Code. I would create a sample CSV file, and then I would literally try doing the thing that the guy is hiring me for, basically. This does take a fair amount of time. If it's the first time that you've done something like this and you're unsure exactly of how to, do the thing, you obviously have to learn how to do the thing. But this is where you produce an insane amount of value. And basically, if somebody actually clicks through your video, you are almost guaranteed to get that job every time. The average proposal to reply rate through my communities is now somewhere around 25-ish%, meaning that if you send a proposal, about 25% of the time, you are going to get some sort of reply back. This is skewed because a lot of people have no job success, no top rated, no nothing. Imagine if you're me, my proposal to reply rate is substantially higher because I'm always at the top and people see, wow, this guy, big dick, huge amount of money that he's earned, so on and so forth. He knows his stuff. Imagine if 30% is the lowest you ever go, you spend $3 basically to get a positive response. $3 to $4, $5, $6 per meeting, something along those lines. Maybe you do 3 meetings to get a win, and it's like $20 a client. This is extraordinarily low cost, and it's super scalable. So if you're not doing it, I'd recommend that you look into it. The last thing is just outbid everyone on every job. Upwork has like this bidding feature. If I can I go back to that screen that I had before? Let me see. I think it's because I'm full screen here, so give me a second. If I were to go over to a random Upwork job and then just apply. Let's do this. You see how at the bottom left-hand corner, it says boost your proposal? What you can do basically, or these are the top 4 spots on Upwork when you submit a bid on a job. What you do is you just outbid everybody and you just make sure that you're always at the top. So I just spent, an extra $2.50 or something like that on this, right? If I'm trying to outbid, if I'm 20, right, it's first place, second place, we sort of tie. The first person to do the bid always gets it. If I go 21, I'm first. I've now spent an additional amount of money to earn this job. And you're probably thinking like, well, Nick, doesn't that add up? It does. But if you think about it, again, you've already paid, right? If you've already paid, but you're basically guaranteed to get a meeting if you do something that is this high value for the customer, then you might as well spend whatever money you need. Additionally, they have this little gambit. If your proposal isn't viewed, you get all your money back. So the game theoretic move is just always outbid everybody. Okay. So yeah, I wanted to be very specific here. I didn't just want to give you guys broad overviews because lead gen is the most important thing. If you don't have leads, you don't have a business. So optimize your profile, use the walkthrough and the checklist that I just showed you guys. Apply with a customized video because Upwork apps cost money. You might as well get as much of that back as you can. And then just outbid everybody on every job. Obviously, don't be ridiculous about it. If somebody's bid 200 connects or something, they spend, I don't know how much money that is, but it's a fucking lot. You don't need to be first place, right? You could be second place if you bid 15 instead. But yeah, be a little bit smart about it. And I think if you just try and put yourself in the customer's shoes, Upwork can go a long way for you. Okay, so the second approach is cold email. I've generated hundreds of thousands of dollars from cold email campaigns. And I firmly believe if you are currently not using this channel to reach high value clients, you are leaving a massive amount of money on the table. You're being silly. I have cold email campaigns that are constantly running, despite the fact that I'm on YouTube and I'm making a lot of money on YouTube too. Cold email is just so high leverage. There's basically nothing that's higher leverage right now than cold email. So here's how you do it right. The first is basically you need to set up multiple mailboxes for volume. So unfortunately, the way that the vast majority of people do it is this is our little email, and they send, I don't know, like 500 a day across to many different email inboxes. So they'll send to, this is one mailbox and then this is like a bunch of mailboxes. This 500 a day, this is going to be marked as spam basically immediately. So what you do instead is you use a platform like Instantly or SmartLead. And what this does is instead of just one mailbox, basically, this is just our array of mailboxes, we get like 50 different mailboxes. And then it automatically distributes volume from every one of these mailboxes to the client or the prospect mailboxes for you. It takes care of all this automatic distribution. So now basically the daily average amount of mail that's being sent from a single mailbox is not 500. Now it's maybe, I don't know, like 30 per day. Future videos will involve me with an actual pen instead of me painstakingly drawing this with my mouse. The idea being when you do stuff like this, the likelihood of any one individual mailbox being banned is super low. And then you can typically just get a lot more alpha that way, which is a little recommendation. Oh, cool, an eraser. So yeah, 30 emails per day per mailbox keeps you below spam thresholds. That's my personal recommendation. You don't have to do it this way, but this is just what I like to do. And this is what I recommend in my program. Some people can get away with more. Some people have to get away with less. After that, you need to source your leads. The 2 best ways to source leads as of the time of this video is use a platform called Apollo, or use a platform called LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Apollo is basically just a big directory of different leads. You can buy leads using Apollo itself, but basically what's occurred now is there's this whole ecosystem set up around Apollo where instead of just buying the Apollo leads, what you do is you buy a scraper that some other dude developed that actually sort of it like scrapes Apollo instead. So instead of paying Apollo, now you're paying some other guy, and then this other guy, delivers you leads for, instead of $79 per month for 24,000 export credits per year, you pay like $3 for, I don't know. The equivalent is it's probably like 1/20th of what Apollo is charging, something along those lines. It's just an estimation. Don't hold me accountable. So you can do that with Apollo. There are 2 good ones right now. There's one called Leads Rapidly, which is pretty big. There's also another one called, it's like Apify's Apollo Scraper. And these just both like take your Apollo cookie, and then with your cookie, they scrape vast amounts of leads for you that otherwise would be behind some sort of paywall type deal. Once you're done with that, write good copy. I have a bunch of videos on this, so just feel free to check out the rest of my channel if you're unclear, but you can just use this as my template moving forward. Hi, I found you on platform. I help niche do really cool thing. Last year, I made amount of money for other clients, and I'm confident I can do the same for you. I guarantee, and if you don't love it, you wouldn't pay a cent. Would this be worth a call? In practice, hi, I found you on LinkedIn. I help B2B agencies make $50,000 a month or more in added revenue. Last year, I made $2.3 million for insert big client name here, and I'm confident I can do the same thing for you. I guarantee you at least 20 booked meetings and a 3 times ROI, and if you don't absolutely fall in love with it, you won't pay a cent. Would this be worth a quick call? Feel free to just do whatever variation of this that you want. You don't have to use the same language, but in general, this seems to pattern match like an effective piece of outreach copy. It's very short, it's very punchy, and it just respects the viewer's time, which I think is really important. And then the fourth is just always test. Never just send one sequence. You should always be split testing your variants against each other. The most valuable resource in cold email is not actually the positive responses that you're getting. It's the data that you get back because of those positive responses. It's seeing what happens when you use different subject lines. It's seeing how best to pitch your service. You're going to get this data, or the time will pass anyway. You might as well get a bunch of data while you're doing it. This is another form of leverage. It's another form of having a tight feedback loop, which is what allows us to use cold email and grow really quickly. So get those tight feedback loops. When you're using cold email, never just send a single sequence, always be split testing. Okay, and then lead generation approach number 3 is called communities. A lot of people are skeptical that communities work, and for good reason, but essentially communities are a big business model right now, owing both to Alex Hormozy's investment in School and a couple of other reasons. Communities are just a simple and straightforward way to solve a lot of problems that entrepreneurs have. They typically don't have a support network because it's a very lonely road. They typically don't have templated assets or resources as well, because they're just getting started with business for the first time. And they also kind of solve like QA and common one-off consultations. So they're extraordinarily powerful. A lot of people just haven't really experimented enough with them to make them work. Here's a way to make them work. What you do is you consistently provide value in a community. You then establish yourself as the go-to expert within the group for a thing. And then once you're the go-to expert in the group, you drop value, give people some SOP that helps them do X, Y, Z. Then people will like, comment, and DM you when your contributions resonate. All you have to do at that point is just engage back and then explore opportunities to help them further. If somebody says, wow, this is so cool, I never thought about this, you reply to them and then you just send them a DM and you say, hey, Peter, what were you planning on using my SOP for? It's super cool that, you do X, Y, and Z. Just wanted to see if I could still help. Something along those lines. How to actually do it? 3 or 2 steps here. The first is just find the right groups. So use platforms like School. So if you go school.com/discover, that page does not exist. Do not go to school.com/discover. Go over here. Oh, Discovery, my bad. Jump over here and then just scroll through and look for communities that fit demographic that you think that you can help. You can sort by free or paid or whatever. Ideally, you're not going to want to be looking for things like, musculature, unless you're some personal trainer or something. You're going to want to be looking for something to do with business. So I don't know. It always cracks me up how this guy has 1,000 members at $49 a month. I have no idea what his stuff is, but like when I see his profile pics, it's just so funny. What's a good example? This is a good example. This is a good example. Granted, this one takes a fair amount of money, but this is like one for editors. This is one for perimenopausal or postmenopausal women. This is print on demand stuff, so you could absolutely help print on demand people. The point that I'm making is you basically pick a niche or a few niches. You join these communities through School, Google, Facebook, Discord, Slack, whatever. And then you, instead of self-promoting and being like, hey guys, how's it going? Please visit my website and I'll make you guys a great funnel for your campaigns. Instead of that, you have to be a little bit clever and you have to kind of go more surreptitiously. What you do is you spend time observing the group before posting. So you actually scroll through the whole community, in my case, the School community, from top to bottom. And then you just kind of like ask yourself, what are these guys talking about? What sorts of questions do they have? If I give you guys like a practical example, there are a few communities here. One of my friends just launched one called Organic Search Academy. So this is my buddy Charlie Clark, founder of Minty Digital. It's a great like SEO agency. And he just started Organic Search Academy, which is meant to help people boost their organic search marketing campaigns in the age of AI. If you think about it, what sorts of people are probably going to be here? People that are SEOs or people that need help with SEO. So maybe what you do is you scroll through this top to bottom. So you can see it's mostly Charlie at this point, because I think this launched like a week ago or something. But you scroll through this top to bottom, you see the various conversations that people are having, the things that they're talking about, the branding that they're using, the terminology that they're using, so on and so forth. And then you Make like a little short list of these terms and the ideas and the pain points and problems that they're facing. And then after that, just start replying to people with a few interesting tidbits or positive energy or ideally value. So I would just go back here and I would say, welcome, Erica. Good to have you here. I would scroll through Charlie's post and I would say, this is going to be huge. I actually know Bennett. I think he's in one of my other communities. Funny. You'd respond, not just these positive little like thumbs up type deals. You'd actually go through and you'd provide some sort of thoughtful analysis or a thoughtful reply. And you do this for maybe like a week or so. You'd build up a bunch of familiarity in the group, and now people know who you are. They know that every time that they get a response from you, it's always positive, it's always good. And then the second that you are at this point where you have like some reputation in the group, all you do is you just write a value post. And this value post just needs to mimic this. Hey, I've been struggling with problem that everybody else is struggling with, and I know many others here have too. Last week, I found a way to do this for very little money or very little time. Step 1, do this. Step 2, do this. Step 3, do this. Hope this helps. Let me know if anything's unclear. You don't pitch. You don't ask for anything back from them. You just wait to have your thing filled with DMs and messages and comments and stuff like that. And then you connect with people, book calls with them, and so on and so forth. Very, very straightforward method that you can do right now as any sort of freelancer. And the value there is you get a ton of leverage. The reason why is because these are posts that you make once and then they stand the test of time. They're going to continue producing leads and stuff like that for you for basically the lifetime of the group. If the group is small and if your post is really good, odds are the person that owns the group or whatever is going to continuously cite this resource as a piece of value within the group. So you're just going to get constant like positive notifications of people weeks and months later, like sending you replies and thanking you and sending you positive DMs. You don't have to believe me. My community does this. This is one of the main ways that my community members in Make Money with Make and Maker School actually make money. They do exactly what I'm telling you guys for the community aspect. And it works super well. Okay, and now that we are done with steps 1 to 3, which I think you probably understand more intuitively, we're going to get into a more abstract one, which is optimization and retention. You know how I talked about testing in cold email being really important? Well, testing and optimizing and improving by 1% every day or week or whatnot, this is a really important concept more generally. If you don't do this, then if we go back to our distance and displacement graph, you're just going to be sort of all over the place. Right? You're trying to get from A to B, but you just keep on looping and doing random circles all over the screen. Optimizing and retaining basically means every time you move, you just ask yourself, hey, am I moving in the right direction? No? Okay, well, let me just move a little bit to the right then. Okay, am I moving in the right direction? No, I got to move a little bit back up. And then eventually what you do is you approximate a straight line path and logically optimizing and retaining is something that just basically everybody should be doing, whether it's split testing cold email, split testing your products, split testing your Upwork, split testing your community approach, or whatever. Okay, so what does that actually mean in practice? I like to set the rule to get 1% better at the thing that I'm doing every week. So 1% better at my craft means 1% better at providing the service. It means 1% better at doing my daily lead generation. It means 1% better at, creating content in communities. It means 1% better at productizing my offer. Literally just get 1% better at your craft every week. Mathematically, if you're a nerd like I am, the formula for this is 1.01 raised to 52. That's 1.67, meaning every year you grow by 67%. If you get 1% better every week, that means that if you make $10,000 a month in year 1, which anybody here can do very easily, by the time year 3 rolls around, I'll be making $28,000 a month. Year 4, I'll be making like $40,000 a month. Basically, this increases your revenue exponentially. And try and contrast this to working like a 9-to-5 job. Like in a 9-to-5 job, you get like a 3% raise every year. That tends just to match inflation. You don't actually make any more money most of the time. If you can grow by 67%, and the only thing you need to do to get there is to get 1% better every week. Like 1% better every week is like 0.1% better every day. Like that's nothing. You could read 3 words on a page in a book that provides help on how to do some freelancing thing, some YouTube video on how to become a better video editor or something. You literally watch 1 minute of that per day and you will be 0.14% better. The leverage here in just being consistent and applying yourself daily is insane. And then the second thing you need to do in order to optimize is retain. Retention just means having a client come back to you for more. So if you do these lead generation activities that I talk about, and if you do them daily, And I'd personally recommend spending at least an hour and a half every single morning on the 3 tasks that I laid out above. You could easily quantify it by saying, I'm going to send 5 Upwork applications a day. I'm going to spend 15 minutes reviewing and responding to cold emails a day. I'm going to spend half an hour, creating community posts per day. If you do this consistently, you will be swimming in leads. It is just a matter of time. And once you're at that point, you'll start realizing that actually just acquiring more leads isn't always the best answer. Once you're at the point where you have a bunch of leads, typically the shortest line path to maintaining and then growing your revenue is not actually just getting more new ones. It's actually just retaining the ones that have already paid you money. And this is for a couple of reasons. The reason why is because happy long-term clients are a lot easier to manage than consistently finding new ones, which means that eventually you can reclaim that 1 hour per day that you're spending on outreach, which increases your leverage further. And then clients are also just, they tend to pay you a lot more because they like and they trust you. You've already gotten that out of the way. So my average amount of money that I make on like a follow-up deal, on like a second deal, as opposed to a first deal, something like 1.5 times the amount. Meaning if on an initial project, I make $2,000, on the follow-up project, I might make $3,000. On the follow-up project after that, I might make $4,000. How do you actually do this? You just over-deliver. You exceed expectations wherever possible. You stay in touch. What I mean by stay in touch is you don't discount the human connection there. You set some sort of like weekly follow-up reminder with all of your clients. Just say, hey, I found this and I thought of you. Or, hey, I saw that you guys just won this big award. I just wanted to check in. That's really cool. Hey, I noticed you guys were experimenting with this. How can I add value for you? This is super simple to do, but a lot of people never do. And they never really think about it this way. You can absolutely systematize your client relationships. And then obviously you incentivize loyalty in some respects. If you think about it, offering a discount to somebody that's paying you more money anyway, just sort of like negates the thing. So, if you're working with somebody long-term, odds are it's going to take you less time to fulfill the same project at the 2-month mark than it will the first day that you guys work together, because you guys have a better working relationship. Things are faster. Some expectations are already set and dealt with ahead of time. To reward them for making your life easier, you can absolutely give them some sort of discount or incentive bonus or something along those lines, because then it aligns both of your needs. You want to get even more work from this person. They want to get work from you because you've already verified that you're good at video editing or automation or cybersecurity or whatever the hell. Just make it like a no-brainer for them to do so. Okay, great. I hope you guys appreciated this video. This is, in sum, how to earn $10,000 a month solo without an agency. Obviously, there's only so much that I can get into in a video like this, which is, we started with high-level concepts and then we sort of worked our way down to like daily lead generation actions. I'm fully cognizant that you need to deal with stuff like setting up payment processors and, actually writing the cold email copy and juggling client relationships and kickoff meetings and stuff like that. It's tough to make a one-size-fits-all video for all of this just because there are so many niches out there and there are so many different like onboarding protocols for clients. I will do my best over the course of the next couple of weeks to put out resources that apply to various niches that are sort of like intra-niche, if that makes sense, but it's going to take me a little bit of time to do so. Still, I do firmly believe that leverage freelancing is a lot higher ROI per unit of your time than running an agency. I've made $30,000 a month, as I mentioned to you guys before, consistently last year, just doing this, which is more money than 99.5% of all human beings on Earth or something like that will ever basically hope to make. And it doesn't need to be super crazy complicated. If you just spend a little bit of time understanding the concepts that I talk about here, understanding the idea of leverage and of distance versus displacement and of tight feedback loops, and just the relative ease of which you can get into something like this with a low barrier to entry, you can absolutely do this for yourself. If you have any questions or anything like that, just drop them down below as a YouTube comment. More than happy to get back to you. Otherwise, if you could do me a big solid, like, comment, subscribe, let me know what you guys want to see in the next video. I'm going to be making a whole series on how to do this sort of leverage freelancing moving forward, so it'd be great to hear from you. Thanks so much. Have a great rest of the day.